Good evening and welcome into Tennessee Volunteers Live on the Voice of College Football Network. Tucker Harlan, Jordan Binkley with you on this Monday evening. Glad that you guys can be with us. Hope you guys had a wonderful weekend, even if it was spent watching blowout baseball games. And if that is indeed why, if that's what you did during your weekend, that's probably why you're here now, because you need your football fix. Still got a little ways to go, but we're glad you're here. If you like what you see, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel, Tennessee at the Voice of College Football. Really helps us out, helps you out, gets you closer to great content that you can enjoy. I myself had a very nice weekend. Went and hit the links again just before I watched the first of the ugly baseball games that Tennessee played out there in Fayetteville. It was a rough weekend for the boys and on the diamond, but good season all in all after a national championship season the prior year. It's hard to expect seasons back-to-back seasons in Omaha after you've won a national title and lose so much, but they end in the super regional, play to their seed line. It's better than anybody else has done here lately. So good season for them. But that is the end of the 2024-25 academic calendar at Tennessee. Jordan, how was your weekend?
Pretty good. I got to go on the boat this weekend. We were having a late celebration for my girlfriend's birthday. It kept getting postponed for a while. Rained a little bit out there, but pretty fun. We had like a boat with the slide on there and everything. And besides that, I've just been prepping for Bonnaroo, which I'm going this week, which is going to be really exciting. A lot of issues with the camper right now. We're trying to fix with the AC and everything. It's leaking. We're trying to find out how the propane tank's going to work, the refrigerator. But you know what? I didn't have air conditioning last year at Bonnaroo. So we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
I don't look at the lineup super closely every single year. Who are like the big names that are supposed to be there this year?
Well, some of the big names I'm not as interested in. Like I know Olivia Rodrigo is going to be there, Luke Combs, Tyler the Creator is probably the biggest name. And then I'm excited for Foster the People and like a couple other indie bands that aren't as popular, like Ginger Root, Arcade Fire. I'm excited for them too.
Yeah, people that go seem to really enjoy it. I've just never been into the whole camp for multiple days to go see live music thing. It's some people really enjoy it, but it's just not my cup of tea.
Well, it's definitely sweaty and dirty there. Like you are going to get extremely dirty. But it is a very fun experience. I'd recommend it to everyone. I feel like once you go to a music festival, you're going to fall in love with them. Like, especially if you're camping there. It's awesome. Amazing experience.
So, like I said, the UT academic and athletic calendar has come to a conclusion officially with the baseball team losing yesterday, which means we are now 82 days away from the opening kickoff against Syracuse on what day is that? August 31st, first week of the season for Tennessee in Atlanta. Any famous 82s out there?
I was just trying to think of that. I mean, I'm sure there's a wide receiver of some sort.
Really, the most famous 82 that I can think of that went through Tennessee didn't even wear 82 at Tennessee. It's Jason Witten.
Oh, yeah. If you want to count Jason Witten, then he would for sure be the most famous 82. But I mean, not really any players that come to my head. I mean, I could think of 83.
Yeah, because we've talked about him a couple times. We might talk about him again tonight. We'll see. But yes, we are getting closer, and we've got some things going on the national level, and these do relate to Tennessee football that we need to get into tonight. This might be the most we ever touch on politics in a show, just because it's multiple things that we need to discuss in the political realm, both in the judicial and legislative branch, not in the executive branch. We're not touching Donald Trump or anything tonight. But we had a pretty major decision on, what was that, Friday in the California courts. The House settlement was approved, which will usher the beginning of revenue sharing in college sports, which is pretty big. You've got schools directly paying players now. As a result, I think it's like a 22% cut of the athletic revenue has to go to the players now. And I saw Ohio State's athletics director Ross Bjork say that that number could push possibly somewhere up around 25 million. I think it's significantly lower than that at multiple schools right now, but like that's their goal or something at Ohio State. Um, and NIL is still going to be a thing. It's not going away, but it just has to be approved by the clearinghouse. I forget what exactly the name of it is. It's like NIL Go something, I don't know, kind of cheesy or something like that. But it's still going to be a thing, but it must be approved. So like you can't there. It's hard to read into, um, just all the legal language of it. But like there's just some differences in what the new NIL is going to look like and the old NIL is. So like I know there was a big deal with a softball pitcher uh, from Texas Tech, Nigel Kennedy, who is going to get like a multi-million-dollar deal over the course of a year with one company. But now that the House settlement's been approved, all this stuff's going to go into effect July 1st. That has to be paid in full here in the next couple of weeks. So things are changing very quickly, and as a result of the House settlement. Also, if I feel like I'm one of those guys reading a PSA for like a Camp Lejeune ad or something. Uh, if you are an athlete who played from 2016 to 2024, you will be compensated in from some number of the grand total of 2.8 billion that is being paid to athletes who played during that time. You will get some amount of compensation because you missed out on NIL. Is essentially what that means. Um, so yeah, you got some changes, and this is why Tennessee put in the whole price hike with its football tickets, the talent fee, if you will. So this stuff is changing, and it's changing fast. And I just wonder at what point we're going to start calling these college athletes employees of the university, not just student athletes anymore.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they're gonna have to like fill out all their tax work and all that stuff too now. I mean, considering that they're gonna be getting like directly paid from the universities. And I'm curious too, like what like I wonder why they chose 2016 as like the start date. I mean, because you could really go really far back if you wanted to. I mean, I know like the people from like 2016 and stuff like that narrowly missed it out, but like what about like the Reggie Bush and everything that he went through and like the controversies with Cam Newton back in the day, like accepting money and stuff. Like I wonder what they think about the situation.
Yeah, that's something I wonder too. And I get it with the last 10 years, like wanting to do a 10-year window. I'm trying to look up when the transfer portal began or when it was founded initially, because it's okay. So it started in 2018. So 2016 was a little bit before then. So I guess it's just the 10-year window thing since we're in the year 2025 now. Um, that's my guess there. But yeah, lots of different language around that, and it's going to look different for each sport too, just because some sports generate a lot more revenue than others. One in particular generates way more than the rest, and it's the very sport that we discuss on this show every single week, college football. But I don't imagine there will be any $4 million deals gifted to quarterbacks on this team this season.
Yeah, probably not this season. I'm curious to know because I am not very good with this legal stuff, as you'd
Oh,
probably
I'm not either.
imagine.
I am not either.
Like I'm seeing something that said like there's a $20.5 million cap for like direct payments, but I'm wondering like how NIL like intertwines with this. Like, could the universities pay $20 million and then you have a booster or something raising like an additional other 20? Like, I'm curious to know what that situation is going to be like
Yeah, the
too.
boosters are going to make this an interesting process because you've seen you've seen how involved the boosters get at some of these schools, like Auburn, for example. It's just been like a booster mafia down there with all of their coaching searches here lately. Like if you upset them, they will run you out of town. There's no doubt about that, and that's going to happen at all kinds of different major football programs around the country. Because I would assume a lot of their money will be funneled into this revenue sharing model or whatever it is they've got going on now in college athletics. But yes, they're going to be they will be controlling a good portion of this as well. So you better play up to your expectations, or they'll want to run you out.
Well, it sounds like it could be good news for these schools. I mean, if the players are getting paid directly, or maybe not so much for the schools, but like for the players and everything, getting paid, like having that budget in for the players getting played and then making NIL on top of it. I mean, that sounds like a pretty cool gig, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean,
just
it's pretty.
Again, oh, no, you go, Jordan.
Oh, no, I wasn't going to say anything important.
Well, I was just going to mention, what was I going to mention? The NIL, it has to be approved, again, by whatever third party it is that approves the NIL deals nowadays. I don't really know what makes it different from some of the other deals that they've already got in place. But
yeah, I feel like we'd need like a lawyer to like come sit down and like be able to explain all of this stuff to us.
Yeah, the legal jargon, it does get messy, and it's a good, and there's a reason I've been staying away from this, because as you can probably tell, it's not my strong suit.
Yeah, same here. But I mean, I figure like with everything that's been changing in college football, like with the uncertainty that NIL was when it first became a thing, I'm sure that we're going to learn more throughout time. Like this will be a good year to figure out how all this stuff's going to go. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting on here. And
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, didn't Chancellor Plowman like agree with the SEC to comply with them? So I think there's no fears about Tennessee getting kicked out of the
about them getting kicked out.
Yeah, which that's good. I mean, I thought that would have been crazy to begin with too. I like kicking out one of the original members of the SEC would be a wild situation. Poor Swanee. I actually went by their university for the first time a couple months back. First of all, beautiful campus. Second of all, I'm like, I had to look it up. I think they're a Division II, maybe even a Division III school now, which is like a huge drop off for a school that used to be in the SEC.
Well, I have at least one relative that played football there. I know a couple people that have, that I grew up around. So it's a nice place down there. I don't know if I've ever actually been to the campus, but it's not really. It is one of the original founding members, along with Tulane, that got kicked out. Now Tulane has actually had a little bit of a resurgence lately, which is kind of funny. And apparently they were interested in Nico as well once Tennessee got rid of him. So, but yes, Tennessee will not be joining the likes of Tulane or Sewanee getting kicked out of the SEC. That is not happening.
Yeah, no one has to worry about that. So y'all can sleep tight, still enjoying the SEC, because Tennessee's not going anywhere.
Nope. All right. I'm a little over the legal talk already. Are you, Jordan?
Me too.
Okay. So let's move on to some other news, maybe more local news here on the Tennessee football front. Tennessee hired a defensive analyst today that some of you guys, at least those of you over the age of, I don't know, 35, 40, will probably recognize, maybe 45. Marion Hobby, former All-SEC defensive tackle here at Tennessee at the tail end of the Johnny Majors era. He was hired by Josh Heupel to be a defensive analyst on this staff. I don't know if I would call him the succession plan to Rodney Garner, seeing that they're both the same age. But he is another guy that has a track record of working with great defensive linemen. For those who don't know, he was on Dabo Swinney's staff from 2011 to 2016. That means he would have been around guys like Vic Beasley, Grady Jarrett, Christian Wilkins, guys that have made it in the pros for a little while now. So That's a good name to have on this staff. A guy that has a keen eye for talent. I don't know if he's been around nearly as many high profile guys as Rodney Garner has just in the college ranks, but he's been in the pros for a little while too. I know with the Cincinnati Bengals. So a guy that's been around some very talented defensive linemen and should only help Rodney Garner out a little bit here at Tennessee in finding some of those big fish to bring in.
Yeah, and it's good to see another Evolve for Life come back and join like the coaching staff. I mean, I'm not as familiar right now, but I can't really think if there's any former players on the staff right now. But I know like Jay Graham was there not too long ago, and then
Shout out Centennial High School.
Shout out to my alma mater.
Yes.
Crazy that he's coaching there, but
Robert Ayers is still here.
Okay, he is.
Yeah.
Okay, so Robert Ayers is still there. I know that what's his name? Anton Davis, wasn't he a part of the program like at some capacity when Butch Jones was there? I don't know if he was actually a coach, but I think he was doing something around the university. But then like of course you have Phil Fulmer, Johnny Majors, like several former Tennessee players to go on to be coaches and stuff. So it's always good seeing that, especially because like you know the university, you know what to expect. You're not going to try to mess it up. Not like any coach is trying to mess up their jobs, but I feel like it means a little bit more if you're going back to your alma mater. So it's pretty cool to see him back at Tennessee.
Yeah. Glad to get him back. And if Rodney Garner does happen to bolt somewhere, then maybe Tennessee has the insurance plan ready for him just in that case. But again, another guy that has a keen eye for defensive talent. And hopefully he can stay around for a little while. I'm sure he will since this place is familiar to him. So I just mentioned like if Rodney Garner were to leave, he would step in as your defensive line coach because he does have experience as a defensive line coach. And I know we are a Tennessee show, but Tennessee does play this team every year. And this is kind of crazy what has just happened to the north of us in the world of college football. So Vince Marrow, for those of you who don't know, the tight ends coach at Kentucky has just left Kentucky to become the general manager of Louisville, which is an interesting move. He's moving there in an off-field role, first of all, which is not something that we've seen a former coach do just yet, I don't think, in the college level. Move from a staff to being a GM in college. It's completely new. And not only that, you are losing your best recruiter to your biggest rival, who historically is kind of a little brother to Kentucky. Like that would be, for example, like I kind of teased at earlier, if Rodney Garner were to go and be the GM for Vanderbilt, if Josh Heupel had been here for say 14 or 15 years, the fan base is getting tired of him, and Rodney Garner says, you know what, I'll just find me another job. I'm not speaking that into existence, but that's what the Tennessee equivalent of that would be. But this is honestly a super wild story that's come out of Lexington, and it makes me just think, it just reaffirms the fact that Tennessee should not be scared of that Kentucky game this year, because it really does look like they're falling apart right now up there.
Yeah, and I think most Tennessee fans typically aren't scared of Kentucky. I know that there's been some unfortunate events in the 21st century, but I mean, besides that, Tennessee's
two in particular. We'll talk about one later.
Two in particular, for sure. But I mean, like Tennessee's always been historically good against Kentucky. I think it's a pretty shocking move, honestly. Like going to Louisville, I mean, I feel like everyone feels the same way. I could not imagine if that happened to Tennessee's staff. I mean, the only thing that I can really think of that's kind of a comparable situation is when Spraggins transferred out.
And, no. Gerald Mincy.
Mincy. My bad. I misspoke. But yeah, Mincy. When Mincy left and went to Florida, that was an interesting situation that I'm sure.
No, he came here from Florida and went up to Kentucky.
No, but wasn't there? maybe I'm getting confused, really confused now, because I could have swore that there was an offensive lineman that went to Florida. I know
No,
that we
no.
did.
Mitzi started at Florida, came to Tennessee for 2 years, and then went to Kentucky, got hurt, didn't even play the back half of the season, and was begging at the concession stand at the end of the Louisville game this past year.
Well, there you go. I fumbled that situation, but yeah. I mean, but you don't really see it much. Or like, I guess Henry To'oTo'o would probably have been a better example for
Yeah.
what I'm going for. But yeah, I don't know. Craziness.
Yeah, it's the first time we've seen again a guy leave a school as a position coach and become a GM, and he's been responsible for like some of their best talent here lately. Like two of their best teams have come in the Mark Stoops era ever. Both of which went 10-3 and won pretty high profile bowl games, and he's the one that's responsible for getting a lot of that talent. So it feels like it signifies the end of what's been a sustained, I don't know if you'd call it prosperous necessarily at Kentucky because they can only be so prosperous up there. But it's been a solid run for Mark Stoops at Kentucky, but it just kind of feels like it's the same thing that happened with them and John Calipari in basketball. It's just like they're running out of steam with this guy up at Kentucky, and that's what we're seeing here with Vince Marrow just bolting on Mark Stoops.
Yeah, and I wonder if we're going to see more coaches do the same thing, like end up becoming general managers and stuff. Because Tennessee doesn't currently have one. And the first time I ever heard of a general manager becoming a thing in college football is when Andrew Luck came over to Stanford. And you've already seen him making some moves with hiring his old coach and Frank Reich and everything. I think it could be a pretty significant job in the future. And hopefully Tennessee jumps on that. Wouldn't it be sick if someone like Peyton Manning ended up wanting to be the general manager?
Yeah, and that's a good question, Jordan. I do wonder at what point you're going to see a general manager step in to try and deal with all this because I want to say, too, Alabama may have been the first one on the general manager train. I forget the guy's name, but they hired him like a year ago. But yes, Stanford is another one of the notable ones with Andrew Luck coming over there and helping out. And I want to say that like some of these schools have people that they consider general managers, but just aren't there in name. Like I know, like Duke basketball, for example, they had a lady that oversees all of their contract negotiations, I guess. And that's what they've been able to do there and just and oversee all that side of things because it's coming to college athletic coaches do not have the time nor the patience to try and deal with all that stuff. You don't see them dealing with it at the professional level, even though this is kind of professional now if we're paying guys this much. So I do wonder at what point Tennessee will say, hey, we need somebody to oversee this that is not Josh Heupel, not Danny White, or any other authority figure at the university.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a fascinating thing to happen. I mean, I think it would be that it could be good for Tennessee if they got a general manager, just because like there's so much going on, so many moving pieces in college football right now. Like you got to be able to keep up with the times and everything, and a general manager could be good at that. And you're talking about like people staying around the programs and stuff like that. Isn't that like what Bob Stoops has like been doing at Oklahoma? I'm pretty sure. I don't know what his role is, but I'm pretty sure he's still been associated with the university and been helping them out.
Yeah, and I want to say before he was an athletics director, Philip Fulmer was already kind of back, just sticking around, and Nick Saban still oversees Alabama. Obviously, he's not a general manager or anything, and he's been outspoken saying, "Hey, I don't want to deal with any of this stuff. This is why I got out." Although part of us is just like, you may have been doing this the whole time, and we just didn't know it. You were smart about it, unlike Jeremy Pruitt, who was trying to oversee that whole scheme, and it didn't work. Which, speaking of Jeremy Pruitt, did you see that clip of AJ McCarron talking to Chris Stewart, the voice of the Alabama, the play-by-play voice of Alabama football, about Jeremy Pruitt? And Lane Kiffin was trying to do like a last-second deal with AJ McCarron, and Jeremy Pruitt was appointed by Nick Saban to go watch AJ McCarron's house, but Jeremy Pruitt went to the wrong house and he knocked on the door, and it was this old lady who was like, "No, AJ lives down that way." And Lane Kiffin got in there and talked to him, but AJ ultimately decided to go to Alabama instead of Tennessee. All the more reason Tennessee should not have hired Jeremy Pruitt.
Yeah, Jeremy Pruitt. See, sometimes, man, like it was so weird during the Pruitt era that I almost forget about him in a sense. Like, of course, I remember Butch Jones because of all the things that he used to say, like the champions of life, the brick by brick, and of course, like brought Tennessee back to promise slightly for a little bit. And then Derek Dooley, can't forget with the orange pants and everything and all his antics with the press conferences and his charismatic personality. I mean, and then Lane Kiffin, of course, leaving. Like Jeremy Pruitt, honestly, I know it just wasn't that long ago, but I forget about him at times. I don't know if it's like that for you or not, but I mean, I just forget about him as like compared to the other coaches that have came out of Tennessee.
Alabama fans forget about the mics. It happens to all of us who see bad coaches go through their programs, I would assume. I mean, Arkansas fans would like to forget Chad Morris, I'm sure, but I don't think they can.
No.
Well, that's all I've got on the general manager thing. That's, again, it's just a crazy story coming out of Lexington, and I really wonder how Kentucky will move forward with Mark Stoops after this, just because, again, it feels like they are crumbling, and that if they're, other than maybe Mississippi State near the beginning of the season, that is the other game that I'm most confident Tennessee will win this season, and they're both road games, which is kind of insane.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Tennessee's going to struggle against Kentucky nor Mississippi, especially Mississippi State this year too. I mean, but yeah, I don't know what Kentucky does in the situation because I know like most of our life up until recently and even before then, Kentucky is like struggled. So I mean, they got Mark Stoops who's got them like pretty successful records, like they won 10 games
Yeah.
before and they were ranked in the top 10 at one point too under him. So I mean, like I don't know. I guess it's up to the university and stuff what they want to do and everything, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like Kentucky, maybe they should know their place a little bit in the SEC.
Yeah, they're just like the dinosaur athletic department. Mitch Barnhart has been there for an eternity, their athletics director. They kept John Calipari around forever, and they kept Mark Stoops around forever. It's just like, at what point do you have a change? Like, I'm not saying, because obviously you got to be careful what you wish for. We've seen it here at Tennessee. It caused a whole decade of turmoil, but I mean, you just get to a point where it's just like you have gotten to the highest of highs, and now 4 years later you're no longer happy as a program, and I feel like you have to move on eventually, right?
I mean, yeah, I feel like you do, but it's just like we haven't seen much from Kentucky since like uh, probably like Bear Bryant. Like I know Bear Bryant won a national championship with Kentucky, but I mean, like what's their ceiling? Like I feel like they get another coach and everything, it'll probably be the same situation as Mark Stoops. Like maybe they'll have a 10-win season at some point, but I don't see Kentucky competing for playoffs or even a national championship anytime soon.
Oh,
But I
no.
but I feel like
No,
some
not
of
at
these
all.
schools have generational like curses and stuff. Like there's just some kind of funk, some kind of voodoo magic going on that keeps some of these schools from being successful.
Yeah. Because the only one that I vividly remember um before Stoops came around was Joker Phillips. Of course,
Oh yeah.
he, he did get a win over Tennessee, but that was kind of a bizarre circumstance. We'll get into that later. But Hal Mummy, father of the air raid, was there from '97 to 2000. He didn't even do that well there. Not that air raid coaches necessarily tend to do well at any of their stops, because it's just one of those things where it's like the triple option. You got to run some token system to give yourself a shot and make things weird enough against your opponent to try and get wins. Because if you try to play normal football, you'll get blitzed.
Yeah, for sure.
But you're right, though. Outside of Bear Bryant, it's the history of Kentucky football is pretty bleak.
But at least they have basketball.
Yes, they do have basketball. They do have basketball up there. That's the only thing they look forward to. But basketball season is a lot further away than football season.
Yeah.
So, we already talked once about the judicial branch of government. I feel like I'm teaching a history class now. Let's shift over to the legislative branch of government, because this does relate to Tennessee football, kind of indirectly, but also directly at the same time. I don't know how exactly to say it. But it was announced, I believe, Friday, that former Tennessee head coach Derek Dooley is looking to run for a U.S. Senate seat in Georgia against Democrat incumbent John Ossoff. I believe that's how you say his name. Dooley issued a statement to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, who first reported this, saying Georgia deserves stronger common sense leadership in the U.S. Senate that represents all Georgians and focuses on results, not headlines.
That's an interesting little quote there.
Yeah, that's what he said to them. Again, not endorsing either party here, but your initial thoughts to the Doolander running as a politician, potentially.
Well, when I saw that you retweeted that, I was shocked at first. But I mean, I can see why he's running. I mean, he's like a charismatic guy. I mean, a lot of people I think like the way that he spoke, the things that he said. But I mean, him talking about getting results into Georgia, I mean, I don't think he's really showed too many results at the places that he's been at. But I don't know. Like, I'm excited for him though. I mean, I like Derek Dooley as a person. It'd be interesting to see how far he can go in the race. I mean, I know that Herschel Walker's had success politically, being able to get his name out there, and then Tommy Tuberville, same thing. And then we were talking about this earlier too. Heath Ledger, or I said Heath Ledger. Heath Schuler was a part of North Carolina's representatives too at one point. So I mean, this ain't like the first time we've seen this kind of situation going on. It's just kind of interesting and a little bit funny to see that Derek Dooley's trying to get into this realm.
Yeah, and I also found the timing of which they broke this story pretty interesting, because it happened to be on June 6th. You know what June 6th is, Jordan?
D-Day.
Can't find Rommel. Where's Rommel? Yes, I'm referring to the infamous Derek Dooley speech. He had a lot of those at Tennessee, man. And this is part of the reason why I think he could be interesting as a politician, is like, sometimes the dudes with goofy press conferences, Mike Leach, for example, could have been a terrific politician just because he could filibuster there for hours if he didn't want something to go through. Dooley could do the same thing, just with all the crazy things he said at Tennessee. Not just that, shower technique, another one, just so bizarre. And I'm just thinking too, like, of the coaches that came through here between Philip Fulmer and Josh Heupel, he would probably make the best politician. I know who would have the best campaign ads. I think you know who that is too.
Oh yeah, champions of life, man.
Brick, you gotta build a nation up brick by brick, Jordan.
Brick by brick. You may lose some games, but at the end of the day, you can always be a champion of life.
Yeah. Lane Kiffin is not particularly trustworthy, but that is offending, quality of a politician. Jeremy Pruitt, what are we even doing here? What are we even doing with him posing as a politician?
Yeah, that'd be the most boring politician of all time.
Yeah, boring and probably wouldn't do much for you, but honestly, how much do politicians do for you anyway?
Yeah.
But one other thing I was going to ask too, just about Derek Dooley, the potential politician, will his career at Tennessee be used for or against him should he enter this political race?
I mean, like we mentioned, there's a lot of good clips of him. I mean, maybe it could help out. But I mean, I don't know. Like, like I was just saying, he was talking about getting results to Georgia and everything. I mean, he didn't really produce much results at Tennessee. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know. He's just a very charismatic guy, just not great of a football coach. I don't know how much that he knows about politics and everything, but I mean, I feel like that's another thing to take into consideration too. Like a coach going into politics, like I can see how that works and everything. I always thought Nick Saban could be
Yeah.
a good like president, even. But I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe someone that's been in politics for a while would probably be the best choice, I would imagine, not necessarily a football coach.
So there are a couple things that come to mind. One, obviously, it's the fact that he was not good at Tennessee as a football coach and kind of became a laughing stock. There is some interesting imagery. I mean, the stool in particular is one that comes to mind for a lot of people, or just him chowing down on that spaghetti after Tennessee beat Alabama when he was an assistant there under Saban back in 2022. So I'm assuming that could be used against him. But another part of me is like, this is how he could sway the Georgia people into voting for him. Is like, you know what, guys? I was an awful coach at Tennessee for you guys. I sabotaged the Tennessee football program into 10 years of misery so that you guys could have a national championship window. And look what I did for you.
Hey,
He
maybe
could do that. That's a
hey,
decent political pitch.
hey, he could argue like, Kirby Smart, that was me, guys. That was me right here. And I mean, I'm sure he's gonna get like votes and everything too. I mean, his dad was a legendary coach for Georgia, so I mean, I'm sure that can win some of the appeal over too. But very interesting. I wonder if he'll wear orange pants to his little debates or whatever he's got going on.
Oh goodness, can you imagine if he did that? If he did that, then he would not get a vote at all. I
No.
would say if he were to do this, and again, he's not even committed to this, but he is eyeing this. He's told a well-known publication that he is interested in running for U.S. Senate.
And I mean, like, too, I mean, like maybe he could be semi decent at it too, because you got to think about all the adversity he had to face being Tennessee's head coach. I mean, I mean, he had to have known everyone's like talked bad about him, like clowned on him at times and everything like that. So I'm sure he's got tough skin. I'm sure he can handle any insult thrown his way or any anything that they question him on. I'm sure that he can spin it in a good direction and be able to say the right thing and whatnot. But I don't know. It's interesting to see. I'm best of luck to Derek Dooley, I guess. But I mean, an interesting route to take.
Caleb Paints Your Nails on Twitter says Dooley to the Senate actually makes a lot of sense when you consider Dooley never made a good decision. He should fit right in.
Yeah.
I mean, he brought in some good recruits. He brought in some noteworthy names. He just never used them very well. I mean, there's several that we can sit here and name. We've already named a lot of them for you in some of our previous shows that we did. Just in terms of underrated guys like obviously Tyler Bray, one of the first good Tennessee quarterbacks I can remember growing up. Although, wait a minute, Kiffin was really the one that brought in Bray, but Bray played under Dooley. Justin Hunter was a Dooley player, as was Derrick Rogers. Cordero Patterson was one that I know he brought in. And you want to talk about walking highlight reels. I mean, there's in the SEC, there have only been a few guys that have really had that moniker. I mean, Eric Berry is one that I can think of too from Tennessee, but I mean, outside of those guys, Darren McFadden is another name. Past that, it gets a little tricky. Like,
Maybe Jeff Demps.
Yeah, that's right. Because Jeff Demps, I mean, I don't remember him quite as well, but I do remember that he was a track runner once upon a time. So they did really like him down there at Florida.
Oh, and Percy Harvin too, another
Oh
Florida
yeah,
guy.
yeah. So you've had a couple of those guys in there. I mean, of course, the gold standard of highlight reels in our childhood was Tavon Austin.
Oh yeah.
You talk to any NFL player that's offensive skill players in particular in the NFL today that are around the same age as me and Jordan, and they will say they probably watched Tavon Austin highlights growing up. He was that big of a deal. But yeah, Cordero Patterson certainly fits that mold as well. It's just he was just in a year at Tennessee that was just wasted. Really, really wasted. I think to all the disappointing years that Tennessee had in that decade, it's right up there with 2016 for me. 2012 is. You could make an argument for 2011, but I think injuries did play a little bit of a part in shifting expectations for that season. 13 and 18, it's a first-year head coach. You get the pass. 17, I don't know what kind of expectations there were. Tennessee failed to meet them. 4 and 8 is unbelievably bad for an SEC football program, not called Vanderbilt or Kentucky.
Well, you know what was disappointing about that too. I don't know how many people know this, but like during that time, Tennessee, before the 2018 season, Tennessee and Ohio State were the only two FBS programs to never lose more than 7 games in a season, and then the 4 and 8 season came on. So now it's just Ohio State, which is unfortunate.
Very, very, and they gave Tennessee a slow and painful death this year, which is also quite unfortunate. A lot of unfortunate things that happened in the last decade. And, you know, Jordan mentioned earlier we could talk about some of the great moments, or at least before the show that we could talk about some of the great moments that Tennessee had under Derek Dooley. And there's maybe one, and it was a win against Vanderbilt for Tennessee, which Tennessee should never stoop down to that level. That was a great game to be at, don't get me wrong. You know, the reaction there at the end when Eric Gordon, scored that touchdown, it was amazing. But, I mean, you look past that game, you got nothing else. You really don't have anything else to go off of in the Derek Dooley era. So what we're going to do instead is talk about the most disappointing moments. Now, I actually asked you guys earlier today, those of you watching or listening to this, however you're soaking us in tonight, I guess. That was a really weird way of saying that. I'm not always great with words. I asked you what the most disappointing moment at Tennessee was under Derek Dooley. I had multiple submissions of the Derek Dooley stool picture, which makes sense. You know, a lot of people said that. A lot of people said the day he was hired, also an acceptable answer. The spaghetti picture made an appearance as well. And I don't know if I'd call that a disappointing moment. Maybe disappointing for Derek Dooley. But outside of that, it was a great night for Tennessee that night. That may be his greatest moment in Neyland Stadium.
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of rough moments going on in Derek Dooley, and I was talking to you before the show. Like I was trying to recap and look at some of the games on there that took place from his time when he was the head coach, and there was a lot more bad than I even realized. Like I knew it was rough because that's like around the time when I first started watching Tennessee football, but I didn't realize how bad it was because I guess I was coping heavily as a kid, just taking pride in whatever player had good stats because that's about all you could cheer for. If Tyler Brayford threw for 350 yards, that was a win for me back in the day because Tennessee was losing everything.
Pretty much. So I've narrowed my most disappointing Dooley moments down to 7. And I don't think there will be much disagreement that they are disappointing moments, but you may disagree with the placement of some of these, I would say. So number 7 for me, you are going to think this is crazy. I'm putting the 2010 Music City Bowl. It was disappointing, very disappointing, but there is also a bad rule in place to blame for that. But also, you think back, like, I don't really remember that game holding a lot of sway over what happened the next season. Like, you look at it now, bowl games can definitely negatively influence what happens the next season. That game didn't necessarily do that. Yes, it was obviously a horrible moment in Tennessee football history, but I just don't think it's nearly as bad as some of the other ones that I've compiled.
Yeah, that game bothered me a lot, and I would agree with you on that. Like, I would put it a little bit higher just because it was just such a stab in the heart because earlier in the season, the LSU game with the too many men on the field, like that was disappointing. And to have a similar-ish situation go on in the bowl game too, when Tennessee was just fighting to make a bowl game during those times. I mean, it was pretty rough. Like I still have the last drive like ingrained in my memory with North Carolina spiking the ball, seemingly no time left. And then, going to overtime and Tyler Brace throws that interception. And then I remember they were making a big deal too during that game. A Tyler Bray doing the throat slash. I don't know if you remember that or not, but I'm pretty sure they tried to get him in trouble for that because he like threw a touchdown pass, maybe to Derrick Rogers, something like that. And then he went like this. And then I don't know. People went insane over that. I don't remember what happened to it, but I think they were talking punishment with them. But that was during the time when you couldn't even really celebrate. Like I think the NFL had like celebrations banned during those times.
Yeah,
But
no fun league.
yeah, the no fun league.
Yeah, but that's why I put it down a little further than the others, just because I don't think it was as negative of an influence as some of the other ones on this list that I've compiled. Next, I mean, these are basically the different versions of the same game for me. It's basically a tie for fifth between the 2012 Georgia game and 2012 South Carolina game. Two road games that were at the very least within reach. Tennessee could have tied those games, sent them to overtime, but late turnovers in both of those games cost Tennessee on the road. And again, that 2012 team, a team that was just stacked with talent on the offensive end, but just Derek Dooley and Swiss cheese Sal Sinceri causing Tennessee lots of problems that season. That defense wasted that team big time. Tennessee gave up 51 and 38 in those games, respectively. The 2012 South Carolina game too. That was the one where Marcus Lattimore. I wanted to say Marshawn Lattimore, but Marcus Lattimore unfortunately had that devastating knee injury. But yeah, that is those two games to me. If you at least win one of them, I feel like you have the chance to alter the trajectory of the back end of your season, but you didn't.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. I mean, like the it was just such a disappointing season because Tennessee had so many players that were young at one point that showed a lot of promise. And then by the time they started becoming like juniors and seniors, you would think that they would be able to put it all together. And like offensively, Tennessee was pretty good. And like you mentioned, Southland series defense really just sold during that time. But I mean, I remember as a kid, I had very high expectations going into the season, and maybe that's just me wearing orange tinted glasses. But I mean, I expected Tennessee to do great things, and then like just looking at how some of the games turned out, it's unacceptable. I mean, the Georgia game, but I mean, like getting dominated by Alabama, like those are rough times too. And I remember when Derek Dooley was the head coach, it seemingly Tennessee got destroyed by Alabama every year, and that was a
31 points every single time. Fun
yeah.
fact: 41-10, 37-6, and 44-13.
And I just thought I thought that's just how it was when Tennessee played Alabama because I didn't know any better. Like the first game I ever watched was the Terrence Cody block. But like besides that, I mean, there was a good long stretch where Tennessee was allowing 45 points plus to Alabama seemingly every single year. So that was a game I was never excited for.
All right, number 4, we're staying in 2012. The underwhelming bowl, Tennessee and Missouri. Tennessee led that game by 2 touchdowns late in the game, but Missouri came back and tied it, went into a bunch of overtimes. Missouri comes out with the win. And, close losses like that are really deflating. You look at some of the teams that have lost a lot of close games lately. You lose 1 or 2 close games at the beginning of the season. You just get to a point where it's like there's this mental block and you don't think you can do it. Like that's a big part of the problem with Arkansas right now under Sam Pittman. It wasn't as big of a problem last year, but you look at the previous 2 seasons, a lot of close losses. And Tennessee had a few of those that season. Had a few of them the next couple seasons as well under Butch Jones, which, again, psychologically, they are very damaging. And that, I think, was one of them because You went into Vanderbilt the next week, just a completely broken team, lost that game by 23. I remember because I was at that game, and
Mm.
I think I left sometime in the third quarter because it was getting out of hand. And I think by the time I got back to my house with my family, Derek Dooley had been fired.
Yeah, not surprising when you put a performance like that up against Vanderbilt. But I'm glad you brought up the Missouri games because like, of course, I saw them when I was looking back, but I forgot how much those Missouri game like stung for me during those times because Missouri is like a new SEC team, and like I don't know how other people felt, but during that time, I didn't feel like Missouri should have came to the SEC. I thought that there was better schools to choose from, and for them to come in there and then I think like start off like 2 or 3-0 against Tennessee as soon as they got into the SEC, that just wasn't a good feeling. You never want to see like the newcomer come in. And then Tennessee was struggling to get any like SEC wins during the time. I mean, it was like Vanderbilt and Kentucky. If Tennessee
Not
was
even
lucky,
Vanderbilt because James
if the
Franklin was around.
yeah. And then when James Franklin was there, that was a real problem. That was a
Yeah.
dark times for Tennessee for sure. And I remember several times being embarrassed to go to school because there was some like Vanderbilt fans there. And I was a very outspoken Tennessee fan. I like to talk a lot of trash, support my team. And then I remember having to eat crow coming back after Vanderbilt just dominated us during the game. I mean, it was rough. I was like asking my mom if I could say I was sick because I didn't want to go to school.
Yeah, that is losing to Vanderbilt or Kentucky any season is a deflator. I don't care what program you are, not just Tennessee. You look around at other places like Ole Miss this year. Once they lost to Kentucky, they were never the same team after that. At least in the national perspective, you lose a game like that at home to start the season. Suddenly, you're just stuck in this somber hangover that you're trying to work your way out of, and then you lose a couple more games down the road just because you've had your confidence hurt real bad for losing to a team like that. And I would say the same thing probably happened to Alabama this season after it lost to Vanderbilt. That's a team that you just, no matter how decent or terrible their record is, you do not want to lose to Vanderbilt or Kentucky. Number 3 on the list, staying in the year 2012. And this one was not as much of a heartbreaker. It's just the fact that it was a negative tone setter. Florida 2012. College game day is in town. You got a night game. You're leading for a good bit of the first half. But you just let the game get away in the third quarter. And granted, Florida was terrific that season. Trey Burton obviously popped off there at the end of that game and really made Tennessee's life miserable. I know Mike Gillislee rattled off a pretty big run in that game too, but that one I just felt like, because Tennessee had beaten NC State earlier in that year. It's like, okay, Tennessee can beat the Power 5 schools. You get Florida at home this year. Maybe you can break that prolonged losing streak, and then all of a sudden that second half happens, and it's just like there went the season for Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, those were really rough times. Like that's when my hatred for Florida started to really grow. Was during those times when Tennessee seemingly had a better team almost every year, or at least like if you look at the talent. Well, actually, maybe that I don't know. Florida does recruit some pretty good players, but I mean, Tennessee had some pretty good players of their own during the time. And to see them not be able to get over the hump against Florida over and over and over again. And like there was the game too where Justin Hunter went down with the ACL. There's just so many unfortunate circumstances, and like Florida using tight ends as their quarterback to defeat Tennessee. I mean, it's just terrible. I don't even want to go back to those times and relive them.
Speaking of position players playing quarterback, number 2, 2011 Kentucky. So, for context, Tennessee was riddled with injuries that season. Like Jordan just mentioned, Justin Hunter goes down for the year in that Florida game. A couple weeks later, you lose Tyler Bray in the Georgia game to a broken thumb for a little while. And Tennessee played a gauntlet of a schedule that year in SEC play. 5 of the teams Tennessee lost to that year won 10 or more games. You had the 2 teams playing for a national championship in LSU and Bama. Both beat Tennessee. Arkansas, the number 3 overall team in the country last year, or that season, smoked Tennessee out there, 49-7. One of the most electric punt returns you'll ever see in that game happened. Just a brutal loss for Tennessee. And then in the East, of course, Georgia beat Tennessee that year in Neyland Stadium. They won 10 games, won the East. Only 2 games they lost that year were to the South Carolina team Tennessee lost to. That team won 11 games. And then to Kellen Moore, Boise State. So all that to say, Tennessee played some brutal teams that year to have to go up against. Like, you could have had a much better West draw than you did, but you didn't get it. But Tyler Bray came back for the Vanderbilt game. Tennessee wins that game. You're 5-6. And then suddenly you're going on the road to play Kentucky. It's a noon game against a 4-7 Kentucky team whose quarterback, Maxwell Smith, has just been clotheslined at Georgia the week before. They don't have a quarterback, so they're playing a receiver at quarterback. Tennessee loses the game 10-7. You had a bowl game within your reach, and you just let it get away from you. Absolutely pitiful that it allowed that to happen.
Arguably one of the most embarrassing losses in Tennessee history, I would have to say.
Because you had the streak, too, the 26-year streak. I didn't even mention that.
Yeah, I think it was like all the way like back from 84 up until that point. 84 up until that point, Tennessee had not lost to Kentucky. And then they lose to a wide receiver at quarterback. Now, thankfully for this game, I was playing lots of video games during that time. I stayed up late playing Call of Duty with my friends, and I did not wake up in time to see the game because I stayed up so late. And then I remember getting on my computer, desktop computer, and went downstairs, and I was like, okay, let's pull up ESPN. Let's see what the score was. And then I looked at it, and my jaw was dropped. And then when I saw that it was a wide receiver as quarterback, I'm like, wow, I made the right decision to stay up the night before because I would have been throwing everything in the house if I was watching that game.
No, it was a brutal game for Tennessee. And because at that point, it's like, okay, Derek Dooley has lost a bunch of games this year. He's gone against some of the best competition in the country. We shouldn't fault him too much for it. Then that game happens, and you're just like, ooh. Because the thing you got to remember, too, with Tennessee football coaches that have lost to Kentucky, they've been fired within a year of doing that. Dooley was fired a little less than a year after having lost to Kentucky. Pruitt lasted a few months. Butch lasted like 2 weeks. So if you lose to Kentucky, it is basically a death sentence for you as the Tennessee football coach.
And didn't Fulmer even have like a really close game with Kentucky before he got outed?
Yeah, 2007. That was the game Tennessee needed to win to get to Atlanta. And they did that year, and of course that was the season they lost to LSU. But yeah, again, don't be losing to Kentucky if you're a Tennessee football coach. It does not end well for you. I will tell you that much. And Derek Dooley eventually found that out, but that is pretty easily number 2 for me because that, like, just in terms of disappointing losses, that's right up there with the most disappointing of them all. But it's not number 1. We all know what number 1 is. There is no competition for what number 1 on this list is. And I am, of course, talking about Dooley's dozen. You have LSU beat 14-10, but you trot 13 men out on the field. LSU gets to replay the down. They win the game 16-14. Think about what that win does for you, should you get that win. You've lost a couple games earlier in the year to Oregon and Florida. And then you had a couple games down the stretch against Georgia, South Carolina, and Alabama that you lost not super competitively. I'm not saying Tennessee would have won any of those games had it beaten LSU, but it at least opens the door for you to be a little bit more competitive. Maybe you win more than 6 games that year if you beat LSU. Maybe Derek Dooley isn't gone in 3 years if he doesn't lose to LSU. But he lost to LSU in the most embarrassing way possible. And that clip was played out for like a week. Like, you know, Come On Man on Monday Night Football.
Mm-hmm.
That was shown on there. That was shown on there the week that happened. So that is the moment that I think ultimately kept the Dooley era from being any more than it was.
Man, and like the implications too, because I'm pretty sure I'd have to check, but I think LSU was like ranked 11th or something during that time, and it was in Death Valley as well. And it was just a simple mistake of just having not just one player on the field extra, but two players extra on the field. And like them, like I remember seeing them scrambling around and then like them just deciding to stay there. And then no one initially caught it at first. They called the game, like everyone started going on the field, everything like that. I was celebrating. I was with one of my friends at the time, and we were just ecstatic. And then all of a sudden, the refs just come out to the field, and it's like, what's going on? What's going on here? And then they say that Tennessee has too many men on the field. They show the replay, circle all the players on there. They had two extra guys on the field. And then what does LSU do? They just run it right up the middle, just right up the middle right there, and they get it and win the game. And it's like all you had to do is not have too many men on the field. I mean, Jordan Jefferson fumbled the football. The game was over. The game was over. And that would have been the first ranked victory that I've ever seen, would have ever seen as a Tennessee fan, but I got robbed of that day.
There you have it. Just an absolutely awful moment in Tennessee football history. There's a couple of those that have come into, just like all-time football fails on YouTube or whatever it is you search for dumbest football plays. That one is on there, and it's probably among the dumbest. I wouldn't call it the dumbest because Dan Orlovsky ran out of bounds in the end zone. That's as dumb as you could possibly get, and yet ESPN pays him. But they have they had their fair share of bad moments, and we've just gone through them. Jordan, do you have any moments that I left off of there? I know you mentioned the Florida game, but I kissed any shot of Tennessee winning that game goodbye the moment that Justin Hunter got injured. You could just feel the air or the wind leave Tennessee's sails the moment
Well,
that happened.
well, I mean, you mentioned a little bit the Arkansas game. That game was rough because, like you mentioned, the punt return. I was actually showing that to my girlfriend earlier today. I was like, "You want to see something that is one of the most embarrassing things I've ever witnessed as a Tennessee fan?" And I showed her the clip, and even she was shocked. There was like 7 or 8 broken tackles on that punt return, and they had him in the corner. Like all they had to do is like push him out of bounds, but they just couldn't wrap up and tackle and let him go all the way. And then like other games that come to my mind too, like I know you mentioned the Vanderbilt game. I don't know if you put that on the list. I can't remember, but I mean, losing 41-18 to Vanderbilt,
Yeah,
like
I I think the season was a wash at that point. I think you had a negative hangover from Mizzou the week before that left kind of a sour taste in your mouth. You couldn't get it out, and then that happened. And again, close defeat after close defeat, they're going to stack up, and ultimately you're going to just get blown out at the end of the season. And it just so happened to be Vanderbilt that did it. So I get why you would put that on there, but I just feel like there were more games that were more disappointing than that one in the Dooley era.
well, the only other one that I have that you didn't mention was the Oregon game in 2010. 48-13 is what Tennessee lost. And what made that game hurt so much for me is because I remembered they would have like little clips for ESPN. They'd be like showing like college football highlights or whatever and everything like that. And I'll never forget. Yeah, I think he was a running back during the time. Michael James. Like
Yeah,
that's all you saw. Like whenever they talked
terrific
about
player.
Oregon. Yeah, but like whenever they showed like his highlights or anything related to Oregon or anything like about college football, like in general, it was him running rampant all across the field against Tennessee. And for that to happen in Neyland Stadium too, no,
Yeah,
that was not
I,
fun.
I get why you feel like that, and it's kind of similar to, and well, I guess every Tennessee football coach has lost his first game against a marquee opponent like that since really since the end of the former era. Because I know Kiffin's first loss was to UCLA, who was of course in the Pac-12 at the time. Dooley's first loss was to Oregon, like we just mentioned, and to get blown out like that on your home field too, that's not okay. Trying to think here. Butch was at Oregon, the Marcus Mariota team that won like 59-14 out there. They're just because I remember ESPN kept showing 2-minute drill clips of Oregon finishing their drives in under 2 minutes, just going all down the field against Tennessee. Jeremy Pruitt got blasted by Will Greer, West Virginia in
I forgot
Charlotte.
about that.
Yeah, because he was still around somehow after beating Tennessee 3 years previously at Florida. And then, of course, Heupel's first loss was against Pittsburgh with Kenny Pickett, who is I honestly kind of find it crazy that he managed to fake so many NFL GMs out into thinking he would be a competent NFL quarterback. But the Tennessee game helped him out a lot in that regard. So maybe he has Tennessee to thank.
Yeah, but I mean, thankfully for that situation, I think the Pitt loss was like the least embarrassing out of all of those,
Oh, yeah, easily.
which is a good thing because I think most Tennessee fans agree that like Josh Heupel's the best coach we've had for a while. So there you go, right there. Like, he had his like marquee loss, but at least it was a close one, and then, like a Bandit Kanda was going crazy that game too. So I mean, like, I don't know, but yeah, that Oregon game, rough.
Yeah, I do remember watching that game because there was a lightning delay too. One of the few lightning delays I remember for a Tennessee football game. That one and another terrible out of conference game, Austin Peay 2 years ago. I was at that game, and then of course Bowling Green in 2015. That was one. I guess were you and I both at that game?
Yes, we were.
Okay. So there are a few of them here and there. Then of course you have Brady Hoke trying to kick off in the monsoon and against LSU at the second half kickoff with in front of like a 75% empty Neyland Stadium because the season's, no pun intended, awash at that point. But yes, Jordan, do you have anything else before we just end living in our past misery here in Tennessee football?
I don't know. Like, I just feel like we just attended a funeral right now, is the way that I'm feeling after talking about all these games.
It's therapeutic, honestly.
It is. It's good to voice these frustrations because, man, I was so livid during all these games that you mentioned. Thankfully, I was asleep during that Kentucky game, but I might not be here today if I was awake during that Tennessee Kentucky game. So,
no. But that's about all I have. Do you have anything else, Jordan?
No, the only thing I gotta say is thank y'all all for tuning in. I mean, it means a lot to us. I mean, y'all coming in, like we got 105 viewers right now. Like we couldn't do this without y'all. I mean, you guys are the lifeblood to everything that we're doing, and we do this all for you. So don't ever be afraid to like leave a comment or anything. Like we'll respond to what you have to say. Like any questions you ask, like we want to talk to y'all. We want to have a conversation, and we appreciate everything that y'all do. And like, yeah, of course, like make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. But yeah, we appreciate y'all a lot, and we're very happy that you guys tune in every single week, even when we're not necessarily on schedule. I know we finally are now, but I mean, y'all staying in for those past 2 weeks where we had to go in on oddball times. It's awesome to see everyone sticking around. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah. 107 of you have tuned in to watch us talk about aspiring politician Derek Dooley. So that feels very good. I promise you we will have, more positive and less political topics here in the future. That just happened to be one of the biggest stories in Tennessee football this week. And it's so laughable that you just have to talk about it, really. I didn't see it coming. It was completely out of left field, but here we are talking about Derek Dooley as a politician, but you don't see it every day. All right, well, that is going to do it for us tonight. For Jordan Binkley, I'm Tucker Harlan. Again, we appreciate all of you guys watching us tonight. Please like, share, and subscribe to Tennessee at the Voice of College Football. Tell your friends about it. Tell your Alabama fan friends. Tell your Florida fan friends if they'd like to hate watch us. We appreciate all of you for tuning in. Again, we do this for you guys, and we really, really enjoy this. We enjoy interacting with you guys and giving you the best content possible. Again, for Jordan Binkley, I am Tucker Harlan. We will see you guys next week.